11 months. That is how long it takes a man like Emeka Lawrence to run out of patience. He had tried everything. The reasonable approach, the professional courtesy, the carefully worded messages delivered through people who owed him favors. Every time, the same result. Nothing. Not anger, not negotiation, not even the satisfaction of a door slammed in his face. Just silence. The specific silence of a woman who has decided you no longer exist in any version of her world that matters. Ada had not responded to a single approach, not one. And every morning he drove past the building on Lagos Island, the one with the small sign that read Ada Holdings in plain dark letters, he felt something he had never felt before in his adult life: irrelevance. For a man like Emeka Lawrence, a man whose entire architecture was built on being seen and believed and needed, irrelevance was worse than failure. Failure you could explain. Failure had a story. Irrelevance just meant you didn't matter enough to be dealt with. And Ada was not dealing with him. She was simply building, without reference to him, without permission from him, without needing him to exist at all. And with every month that passed, every new contract, every returning client, every quiet confirmation that Ada Holdings was real and growing and completely beyond him, the man who had always operated with patience began to lose it. Because the problem with masks is that eventually the person underneath them gets tired of holding them up. You know this story. You know the river. You know the crate. You know the wardrobe and the documents and the room where a man signed away everything he had stolen while the woman he stole it from watched without blinking. You know, Ada. What you need to know now is what happened in the 11 months after. Because the story did not end when the documents were signed. It never does. Men like Emeka Lawrence do not accept endings. They reframe them. And when they cannot reframe, they look for another way. The office had changed. Not dramatically. Not in the way that announces itself. But the shelves were fuller now. More fabric swatches. More suppliers represented. A second whiteboard had been added to the wall because the first one had run out of space. There were 2 people working in the outer room now. A young man named Tobena, who handled logistics. A woman named Bisi, who managed the client accounts. Ada had hired them both within 6 months of the business reopening, not because she could afford to be generous, but because after losing everything once, Ada had no interest in building anything fragile again. She understood something Emeka had never taught her, though she had learnt it because of him. The fastest way to make a business untouchable is to make it necessary. So she had made Ada Holdings necessary to Lillian's manufacturing operations, to 3 other manufacturers Senator Okafor had quietly directed her way, to the network of textile suppliers across West Africa who remembered Ada from before, who had always known whose relationships they really were, and had been waiting for the right moment to come back. 11 months. The business was not large, it was not wealthy, but it was real. In the way that things built from nothing by someone who has survived everything tend to be real. Solid, precise, quietly impossible to ignore. Ada arrived at the office at 7:15 every morning. She left at 6:30 every evening. She ate lunch at her desk. She kept the notebook with the fabric swatches in the top left drawer. Not because she needed it anymore, because she would never stop needing to know it was there. On this particular Tuesday morning, Ada arrived to find Tobena already at his desk. "There was a man here yesterday," he said, "after you left." Ada set her bag down. "What kind of man?" Tobena considered this. "The kind," he said, carefully, "who smiles like he's doing you a favor." Ada's hands paused briefly over the zipper of her bag. Just briefly. Then the movement continued like nothing had registered. Did he leave a name? No. Did he leave a message? He said to tell you that someone who wishes you well would like 5 minutes. Ada sat down at her desk. She opened her laptop.
If he comes back, she said, without looking up, tell him 5 minutes is not available. Tobena nodded.
And if he keeps coming back?
Ada looked up. Then tell me, and I will handle it myself. She returned to her screen. Tobena returned to his. The morning continued.
He sent someone else the next week. A woman this time, a former industry colleague, someone Ada had known before everything. The woman called and asked if they could meet for coffee, for old time's sake. Ada met her, not because she was uncertain, because she wanted to understand exactly how far he was willing to go. They sat in a cafe in Victoria Island. The woman was warm, apologetic almost. He just wants to talk, she said. He says he has something he wants to give back to you, something that should have been yours. Ada held her coffee cup. He already gave it back, Ada said, in a conference room with a lawyer present and his signature on every page. The woman shifted slightly. He says there is more, things that weren't in those documents, contacts, introductions. He says he can open doors for you that would take years to open yourself, that there are rooms you still shouldn't have to fight to enter alone. Ada looked at her, not with anger, not with contempt, with the specific expression of a woman who has heard this exact sentence in this exact tone before. Tell him, Ada said quietly. I walked through the hardest door of my life without him.
A pause. I think I'll manage the rest. She set the coffee cup down. And tell him I won't be meeting anyone else he sends. She stood, picked up her bag, thank you for the coffee, and left. The woman watched her go, then picked up her phone.
He listened to the report without expression. 11 months ago, he would have smiled. He would have found the reasonable reframe. He would have said, she just needs time. She will come around. But 11 months of watching Ada Holdings grow without him, 11 months of doors that didn't open, 11 months of silence from a woman who no longer registered his existence, had done something to the reasonable face. Not removed it, but cracked it in places that were becoming harder to hide. She won't meet. No. She won't take calls. No. She won't even... Emeka. The woman's voice was careful now. She's not going to. A silence. I think you need to let this go. He looked at her. The reasonable face was very much present, but behind it, something else. Something that had been building for 11 months in the specific way that things build in men who are not used to being told no. Thank you, he said. I appreciate your help. She left, and Emeka Lawrence sat alone in a room that was considerably smaller than the room he had occupied 18 months ago. He looked at the window for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and made a call he had been thinking about for 3 months.
The visiting room at the detention facility was not designed for comfort. Plastic chairs, fluorescent light, the smell of institution. Tunde had been here for 11 months. He had learned to manage the space, to make the plastic chair feel like a throne through posture alone. The charm was still there, even here, but it was a different kind of charm now. 11 months of stillness had refined it, stripped away the warmth and left only the precision, the charm of a man who has had nothing to do but think, and thinking for a man like Tunde was not idle. Barrister Chidieze sat across from him, late 40s, sharp eyes behind square glasses, a man who had built a very comfortable practice on knowing which laws bent furthest before they broke. The trial date, Tunde said. Still being managed, Eze said. We have filed for an additional postponement on medical grounds. That buys us at minimum 3 more months. Tunde nodded. The testimony. Eze adjusted his glasses. Lillian's testimony is the spine of their case. The physical evidence supports it, but without her, the prosecution has a significantly weaker position. And if her credibility were to be questioned, Eze looked at him. That would require something substantial, an association, a connection that creates doubt about her motives or her character. A pause. Or, Tunde said, something that removes the source of her confidence. Eze said nothing. There is a woman, Tunde said. Her name is Ada. She is the reason Lillian is standing where she is standing. He leaned forward slightly. I have been told that a mutual acquaintance has been trying to reach this woman for 11 months without success. Eze was very still now. And this acquaintance is motivated. A pause. Men do dangerous things when they feel cornered. A pause. Sometimes all they need is someone to point them in a direction. Eze looked at him for a long moment. Then he stood, straightened his jacket. I will need to make some calls, he said. Not agreeing, not disagreeing, just leaving, the way men like Eze always left, when they had already decided something. It was not a meeting that anyone would remember if asked. A restaurant in Lekki, quiet corner table. 2 men who had never been introduced and would deny they had ever met. Emeka arrived first, composed, the reasonable face fully assembled. The man who came was not Tunde. It was a representative, a man whose name did not matter and whose face was designed to be forgotten. He wore a plain brown jacket. He carried no bag. He had the kind of face that security cameras would later struggle to describe. They ordered water. Neither touched it. The representative spoke quietly for 4 minutes. Emeka listened. The proposal was simple. Tunde needed Lillian's testimony weakened or discredited before the trial date. The most effective way to do that was to remove the foundation Lillian's confidence was built on, Ada. If Ada could be made unavailable, placed in a situation that removed her from the equation, Lillian would be more isolated, more vulnerable, more manageable. In return, Tunde's resources and Barrister Eze's network would give Emeka something he had been unable to access on his own. A door back in. Small, possible, enough. And for a man who had been staring at nothing for 11 months, a possibility was everything. Emeka looked at the water glass, then at the representative. What does unavailable mean specifically? The representative said 1 word. Emeka did not react immediately. That was the last moment he could still pretend this was theoretical. For a long moment, the reasonable face was completely absent. What was underneath it was not attractive. Then the reasonable face returned, and Emeka Lawrence nodded once. It started with small things. Ada was late to a call she had never missed before. Then a delivery from a supplier Ada had personally confirmed did not arrive. Then Torbena called Lillian's office asking if Ada had mentioned going anywhere because she had not come in that morning and was not answering her phone. Lillian was on another call when the message arrived. She ended it immediately. She called Ada. No answer. And suddenly, the silence felt familiar. Too familiar. She called again. No answer. She sat very still at her desk for approximately 30 seconds. Then she called Senator Adiazev Okafor. I need your help, she said, and I need it now. The senator's voice was calm. Tell me. By afternoon, 3 things were confirmed. First, Ada had left her office the previous evening at her usual time. Torbena had seen her go. She had said goodnight. She had seemed completely normal. Second, her phone had last been active at 9:47 p.m. at a location on the outskirts of Lagos, not her home, not anywhere she had reason to be. Third, 2 days before Ada disappeared, a man matching Emeka Lawrence's physical description had been seen in the street outside Ada Holdings for the second time that week. A building security camera from the property next door had recorded it. Lillian looked at the image on the senator's assistant's laptop. She did not need to study it long. Lillian felt something cold move through her chest. It's him. Not suspicion, not instinct, recognition. The senator was on the phone before Lillian had finished the sentence.
Ada was not at the river. She was not at her office. She was not at home. She was not anywhere the people who loved her could find her. But she was somewhere. Because Ada did not disappear. She had made a promise to herself 7 years ago at a different river, and she had kept it through everything. She was somewhere. And somewhere, in a room she had not chosen, Ada Holdings was still running in her head. The contacts, the routes, the supplier names, the numbers. The things no one could take by putting her in a room. She had survived the river once. She had survived 7 years. She had survived a man who had all the documents and none of the knowledge. Wherever they had put her now, she was already thinking about how to get out of it. And someone was already looking for her. Part 5 coming.